What is up, ladies and gents? Welcome back to the channel. This is another weekly episodic TV show review. House of the Dragon. We are on episode 7 now, so fast approaching the end of the series. This one is called Driftmark. Now, it goes without saying, guys, this is going to contain huge spoilers for the episode. So if you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend you watch it and then come back at a later time. Likewise, if you do enjoy the review, please do leave a thumbs up. Feel free to subscribe as well if you're brand new to the channel. And don't forget to hit the bell icon on the channel homepage. And you'll be notified as and when episode 8's review goes live or any other content that I post. So we set the scene. It's a grand opening. Lady Laenor's funeral is taking place at Driftwood. We get a scene with Rhaenyra speaking to her youngest son about the death of his cousin. She says to him, you need to share kind words. At this point, the children are massively against each other. They're sort of building up their own little war going on, their own little clan. So obviously you've got Rhaenyra's children and you've got the children of Alicent on the other side. Technically cousins, there's half-brothers, half-sisters in there. But they don't know it at this point in the episode, at least anyway. Spoilers. And as we go along, it gets more and more intense. So it starts off, there's lots of side glancing going on at the funeral. Everybody's there. Everybody's talking about how devastating it is that Laenor's dead. For those of you that haven't caught up, Laenor, I think I've said that right, is the wife now, dead wife of Damon, who was sort of moving into her as, I think, a political, strategical point. He's marrying in, well, he was trying to marry into a Valyrian house, gain power. Unfortunately, she's now dead. She died giving childbirth, and her dragon singed her like a flame-grilled steak. So she is now dead. This is her funeral. Everyone's there. Everyone's looking at each other, side glancing. There's a lot of tension. There's a lot of instant camera shots where everyone's kind of looking at each other, waiting for the old dagger in the night sort of thing. So Rhaenyra says to the youngest boy, go and speak to your cousin. He's like, I don't want to do it. And she's like, sometimes you've got to do what you have to do, i.e. the right thing, the thing that's going to be your duty, even if you don't want to. We then get a scene with Aegon. This is the meat beater for anyone who forgets who Aegon is. Is the eldest child of Alicent. And he is the one that got caught beating off in the window in the last, I think it was the last episode, it might have been the episode before. He was whacking his pork in the window. He's just generally a bit of a knob. He comes across quite brash, a bit like the playground bully. He's got elements of Joffrey in him as well, and I'll explain why as we go through the review, but he just reminds me very much of Joffrey. Very early stages though, not quite full-blown Joffrey yet. But he's just being a dick, and he's just prodding fun at the other kids. And he's talking about loving creatures with long legs, and he's talking about a girl, one of the Valyrian house girls, the Driftmark people, and she's kind of like talking to a spider and all that kind of thing, and he's like, yeah, you're not the only one that likes something with long legs, just being a bit of a weird little pervert. We then get a scene with Lord Varys, who is now the new Lord of Harrenhal after his little stint where he set fire to Harrenhal in episode 6. We assume that Lionel, the ex-Hand of the King, is dead, and also his son, aka secret lover of Rhaenyra, aka father of her kids. So I personally think he's still alive. I don't think we're going to see him until a couple of later episodes, but I think he is going to come out of the woodworks. Rhaenyra, however, moves on very quickly, which we're going to see in this episode. She likes to keep it in the family as well. But we get a scene essentially where Lord Varys is continuing to pull his strings. He talks about how he's always got Alicent's back, and Alicent sort of mentions to Sir Criston that Lord Varys is the new head and lord of Harrenhal, so he's now gained a castle through his deed. So Alicent very quickly got over the, oh my god, I wasn't involved in that, I didn't want you to go that far. Now she's actually come away thinking, yeah, you've got rid of him, you got rid of the problem, thank you very much, have a castle. So she's moved on quite quickly from that. He's got his castle. As I said, there's lots of side tension, lots of eyes, lots of panning camera shots in this scene. We then see Lord King Viserys, and Damon's there as well. Damon's casually sort of hanging out on the wall, checking out the potential females that he's going to carry forward in the future. And Viserys says to Damon, look, we need to put our differences aside. Your girls are absolute images of their mother. The gods can be cruel. This wasn't down to you. Damon just kind of shrugs it off, as Damon does, and says it is what it is. Viserys then says to Damon, please come to King's Landing, serve at my side, you're my brother, you've been loyal to me all these years. And Damon's like, nah, I'm good, mate, thank you very much, but I've got Pentos, I don't need anything. Politely shuts him down. Viserys looks quite sad, and you actually see on his face that he does want Damon back on side, his family at the end of the day. And I think there's been years and years of history between them where Damon has been loyal, he has served his purpose to the crown, and he's a Targaryen at the end of the day, so Viserys wants his family around him. He knows the end is coming. He looks like death warmed up in this episode. He looks like he's on his final legs, bless him. Great character, but I think by the end of this season, Viserys is kaput. He's going to be gone. So he looks like a withered ringwraith in this episode, completely drawn out, completely colourless, old, fossilized. And what I'm really impressed with is just the makeup and the prosthetics. Every single episode, he looks older and older and older without actually coming across dead. So he is pretty much looking like the Walking Dead in this episode. As we know, he cut his hand on the throne, and for those of you that are into your lore, Game of Thrones and all that type of universe, you will know that a lot of people have cut their hand on the throne through a curse, and they have all died. So Viserys is going to be part of that little group, so he's going to be gone. But hopefully he stays till the end of the season at least, and I think it's going to culminate with his death, and war is going to kick off massively from different angles once he is dead. We're setting the chess pieces up in this episode for that, definitely. Damon politely turns down Viserys, doesn't need you, I've got Pentos. Viserys then says he's off to bed. He leaves Sir Criston to watch Alicent, and he kind of gives a glance to Alicent as if to say, I've given up. Like, their relationship's just there for duty. She doesn't love him. He doesn't love her. Might have done in the beginning. They might have shared some common ground, some common knowledge, but they're both completely different people, and they both recognise that. So they try not to sort of bring each other any demeanour in front of people. They're both quite respectful, or try to be. Sometimes their personal interests does come forward. So in the last episode, we saw Alicent interrupting Viserys' speech. Very no.
Naughty, naughty. You teasing me, you naughty, naughty.
But Viserys in this one respects Alicent. He looks at her, one of the Kingsguard that's escorting Viserys says, my lord, do you want me to bring the queen? He looks at Alicent and goes, no, it's okay, she's fine. So whereas before he'd be like, yeah, bring her back to the bed, let's have a go, sort of thing. Those days are gone now. So he's kind of moved on from trying to build that relationship, and understands that the relationship isn't pure. It isn't what it's supposed to be. It's not textbook. It's not a fairy tale. He's serving his duty, and so is she as queen. And they both got, a mutual respect for that. So he trots off to bed. We then see the Queen of Driftmark and Lord Corlys, I think I've pronounced that right, talking about Damon, and also how the gods have forsaken them, potentially because of their pride, because of their power, their lust for conquering. Corlys isn't having it. He's like, no, this is just the beginning. This is just us, basically a catalyst for us to get our asses in gear, claim back what is yours, i.e. the crown, or not of only Driftmark, but the kingdoms far and wide, starting with King's Landing, starting with the Iron Throne. The Queen is not too keen on this. She's not, she's a little bit, she tries to say we need to play it strategically. All you go on about is power, look where it's got us. But Corlys is like, nah, it's not just about the Targaryens, only if we allow it to be. We've got children, you've got children in that bloodline, so have I. They're just as entitled to it as Rhaenyra's kids or any other kids that come into the fold. And he's kind of right. So they have a little bit of a back and forth. And we then get a scene where the Queen is still talking to Corlys, and she says she wants the Valyrian house to stand solo, and she wants Rhaenyra's children to not have claim to that throne. And that's the way they're going to get around it, is the Queen's plan. She says, your children are of pure Targaryen bloodline. Rhaenyra's children, as we know, are bastards. They're not. Your children should have claim to that throne. We need to continue that legacy. We need to continue that bloodline. And that's the way we're going to do this. So Corlys then makes a very valid point and says history remembers names, not blood. So he's referring to, obviously, the Targaryens. Not all of them are pure. Not all of them do it by the book. Some of them like to share their families with each other. Some of them have all sorts of weird and wonderful encounters, as we see in this episode with Rhaenyra and Damon. More on that in a minute. But the gist of it is that he's saying we can't just say our children lay claim to this because she has a name behind them. So it's going to be a bigger problem. It's not just going to be a quick fix. We then get a scene, Talk of the Devil, where Rhaenyra is talking to Damon about performing her duties. They're walking along the beach, and she says she tried to conceive with Lauro, or whatever his name was, the Prince of Driftwood, and there was no joy in it, is her exact word. She said she found better elsewhere, quote unquote, and it's something that she feels that she's put up for too long. She feels that there's something that she needs to do. There's a call into her, i.e. Damon. And then Damon says that he also in the same breath mentions that Alicent is a threat to the Targaryen house. Not just to that, but to Rhaenyra's claim, to her children's claim, to him as well. He's going to get nowhere near the throne. He's not going to get within sniffing distance so long as Alicent and her brood are around, is essentially what he says. So Rhaenyra says she's not capable of murder, and she's also referring to Alicent. She said she wouldn't kill us, she wouldn't do that. Damon's kind of like, you're stupid if you think that she's not going to put her kids before you. Causes a little bit of friction, but you also see the thought process on Rhaenyra's face, as in, yeah, you're absolutely right, because I would do the same with my children, and I'm going to. And ultimately, this episode is just about that. It's a power jostle between Rhaenyra and the Targaryens and her children, and Alicent, the true Targaryen children, and Driftwood. It is kind of like a power play episode, but it sets up the end of the season beautifully, and I'm really excited for episode 8 and in terms of how this ends and where this goes. So lots of drama in this episode. I wouldn't say this is my all-time favorite episode so far. It's very, very enjoyable, but this is a lot to do with sort of political plays, intrigue. There's loads of drama in there, great dialogue, great acting, but I preferred episode 5 and 6 personally, but this is still a very strong contender. So anyway, we go back to the scene. Rhaenyra's talking about Alicent. Damon's trying to plant the seed in her head. We then get a very weird and awkward pervy moment where Rhaenyra's like, I've missed you, I've never been the same since you've left, I've been waiting for you all these years, you're the person that I need to be with, you know me, you're loyal, you're the brother of my father, yeah, keep it in the house, why don't you? And they share a moment, they kiss. There's a dirty scene where they're kind of in a weird tent thing out on the beach, and they have a little shebang. So Damon is well and truly on side with Rhaenyra. He's on side and he's inside Rhaenyra. So fireworks on an incest level are going off.
Don't you fucking dare, you dirty bastard!
We then get a scene where Aemond, who, if you remember, is the youngest of Alicent's children, youngest of the 3 boys, and he is still reeling from the fact that he got the piss taken out of him in the last episode. If you guys remember, at the beginning, they were trying to tame the dragons in the dragon's pit. Aemond couldn't do it, and then they took the piss out of him. The other 2 brothers took the piss out of him by getting him a pig and dressing the pig up. So Aemond is still adamant to be King Dragon Rider. He goes out to the desert where Laena's old dragon is. So Damon's used to be wife that's dead, the funeral at the beginning. Her dragon is in the desert. It's all chained up. It's fucking huge. I think it's called Vhagar, and he goes over and tries to tame it. Dragon wakes up. It looks like it's about to eat him. He steadies himself, calms it, puts his hands out. The dragon then opens its mouth, and it looks like it's about to Dracarys his ass. And then he talks to it in Old Valyrian, calms the dragon down, says it's going to be okay, climbs on the fucking dragon, and then there's an amazing, which is, this is one of my favourite scenes in the whole episode, an amazing flying scene where we get the dragon taken off. Aemond has finally conquered his fear of dragons, and he's now King Dragon Rider. He's pulled off the biggest fucking dragon as far as the eyes can see. It's a dragon that Laena's children were hoping to sort of tame and take over, but Aemond got in there, being the Targaryen that he is, and does what the fuck he wants. He's gone in, he's like, nah, I'm going to do this for myself. He's got good traits, but he's also got traits of his eldest brother as well, Aegon. So gets on the dragon. There's an amazing sort of minute or two of this flying sequence where he's going all around the desert trying to find his feet. Remind me a little bit of when Jon Snow first got on Viserion, and he's trying to find his way with the dragon, trying to steer it, trying to find his footing, trying to find his balance, and Daenerys is just taking the piss out of him. Kind of reminds me of that. There's a little bit of unease at first, but as the scene goes on, he gets more and more comfortable with the dragon. He becomes one with the dragon, and we get some amazing music. We get some amazing CGI. I did pick up on elements of Dance of the Dragons, that awesome musical track that we always used to get in Game of Thrones when there's a huge dragon scene with Daenerys. That track is mixed into this scene with slight variations of other music as well, slightly different sort of tones coming in as well. And it just reminded me of old school Game of Thrones. That first time that you see that first dragon, you see the Dance of the Dragons, you see the bit where she wipes out the Lannister army, and you've just got that sort of amazing choir that kicks in, and you've got the high-strung violins, you've got the orchestra coming in strong, and it just feels absolutely epic. And that is one of these scenes. So really enjoyed this. We then get a scene where the kids are fighting over the dragon. So Aegon goes back to the keep, and one of Laena's children says, "That's my dragon, that was my mother's dragon." Aegon says, "Snooze, you lose, fuck you, I'm taking it, doing what I want." The kids have a full-on tussle, so there's kids on each side. They have a little bit of a tussle, but it's the youngest ones. I don't recall Aegon being there. It's all of the youngest children fighting. So they managed to pin Aemond down. They gave him a bit of a lashing, and he overcomes one of Rhaenyra's children. The eldest boy of Rhaenyra, I can't remember his name, pulls out a dagger. It gets quite tasty, and he slashes the eye of Alicent's youngest boy, Aemond. It all culminates because they call each other, one of the Alicent's children calls one of Rhaenyra's boys a bastard, says you're not pure, you're not a Targaryen, you don't have claim to that anyway, let alone, you can't claim a dragon, let alone a throne. My mum was a true Targaryen, that's my fucking dragon. They're just fighting over status, basically, and who the true Targaryens are, trying to live up to the parents, and trying to live up to the honor of the parents and what the parents want them to become. And obviously the frustrations of the parents are coming loud and true through the kids as well. They're pulling each other apart for their errors, basically, instead of sticking together as a family should. They're going at each other massively. So an almighty scene erupts where they're fighting each other. I get slashed, and all of a sudden the guards break in, everything gets split up, and then we get a very intense scene where Rhaenyra's just coming in, she's putting her bra back on after seeing her uncle out the door on the beach. Alicent's in there, what's the meaning of this? They're all sort of arguing, and Viserys asks Aemond for the truth and says, what happened here? How did you, why did they slash your eye? Speak to me, tell me the truth. Aegon says, we know why they are the way they are. Everybody knows. It basically says to Viserys, the reason why this is all kicking off is because Rhaenyra's children aren't pure. They're not Targaryen, and we know that. You know that. Let's not play a game here. And I thought, fair play to Aegon. That's the first time he's actually come out of his shell, I feel, as a kid. Stopped playing with his meat, and he's actually come out and was really ballsy and truthful in front of the king, in front of his mum, his family, everything. He's like, nah, you know it's bullshit, I know it's bullshit, let's stop pretending, let's stop trying to make a meal out of this. Viserys asks for this to be resolved in the name of the king, in the name of the grandsire. He's basically saying, I'm the fucking king rooster around there, this ends now, resolve it one way or another. Alicent says, not happy with that, an eye for an eye. I'm not happy with this. I want one of their children's eyes taken as payment. Which is very reminiscent of when Joffrey was bit in episode 1 of Game of Thrones. If you remember, Joffrey got bit by Sansa's direwolf. Next thing you know, the direwolf had to be put down. All because Joffrey went and crying to his mum and the king, and Cersei wanted the direwolf done for what happened. What happened. Sansa's direwolf was killed because it was Arya's direwolf that bit Joffrey, and Arya's direwolf got away. She set it free into the forest and said go, and then Lady, which is Sansa's direwolf, took the rap for it. So it's the same sort of story here. Alicent's basically saying, if we can't resolve this, and I'm not happy with what you're saying. It can't just be resolved with a simple, sorry, my son's lost his eyesight. I want one of their eyes in return. An eye for an eye, literally. And kind of questions Viserys' judgment. Viserys then says, absolutely not. I'm the king. You need to calm down. Stop letting your emotions get the better of you. And in this scene, it's very much, Alicent is very much going down the route of Cersei. There's certain things that she's starting to do. Her emotions are boiling over, all because of Rhaenyra consistently fucking her over, letting her down, betraying her. Her children are now running riot as well. Took one of her boys' eyes, and this is like the boiling point. She's absolutely fucking fuming. She knows what Rhaenyra did to Sir Criston as well. He's still sour grapes about it, and she thinks that she's just a total bitch. So her emotion is absolutely at tipping point. Alicent then goes a bit AWOL, grabs the Valyrian steel dagger from Viserys' cloak, his little sheath, goes at Rhaenyra with it. Rhaenyra jumps in, obviously blocks the blade from going towards her son. Damon then steps in, stops Sir Criston from getting involved. There's huge tension, and in the middle of the room, which is where this picture is here, you've got Alicent and Rhaenyra having a little bit of a standoff, Wild West style, with a Valyrian steel dagger instead of a Colt revolver. And they're just going mental at each other, shouting. There's dialogue between them. Obviously, this is culmination and the tipping point of all emotions that have happened up to this point. All the lies, all the deceit. They're both sick of it. They just want to have it out, basically. Aemond then, very cleverly, diffuses the situation. So the kids started this, although it was kind of the fault of the parents that all this has happened. The kids started it and they diffuse it. So Aemond steps in and says, don't mourn me. I might have lost an eye, but I've gained a dragon. And Otto at this point is back. I think he's kind of serving the king, but he's more serving Alicent. But he's in between, so he's back in his old position. And he kind of glances over and he's like, yeah, that's my boy. He's loving it. So that diffuses the situation. And then we get a scene where Alicent is talking to her father, Otto, i.e. ex-hand of the king. She said, I've disgraced myself. Can't believe I've done it. Please forgive me, blah, blah, blah. And then we think he's going to give her a bit of a bollocking, but we know. I said this from the off. Otto is this season's Littlefinger. Aside from Lord Varys, this guy is pulling strings. He's absolutely in Alicent's mind. He's controlling her. He's influencing the way she thinks, influencing the way she deals with emotion, how she deals with her relationship, not just with Rhaenyra, but as a queen. And we've seen that countless times in the prior episodes. He's just been doing his little dialogue in the background. Yeah, go and spend time with the king. Go and find out what he thinks about that. Come and tell me what he says about this. Trying to make it out like he's being the caring dad, but actually, he is the master of information. And as we know, that's what caused so much havoc in Game of Thrones. And it turned out to be a lot of what happened was down to Littlefinger. And it was all based on a lie. This is happening again. Otto's saying to her, don't you worry about it. I'm actually really proud of you. If we want to get what we want to get, we have to play an ugly game. So he kind of just agrees that Alicent actually doesn't need to apologize. She's done quite a tactful move. And he says we have to have determination. We have to be able to go in and win this. And one of the ways of doing that is being willing to get our hands dirty and our hands bloody. So he kind of gives her the nod, the proud dad nod. We get the next scene where the Maester is gruesomely sewing up Rhaenyra's arm. He says that she will scar, but as it's a Valyrian steel dagger, it cuts very nice and clean, so it will heal. She's not going to die from sepsis or anything like that. Rhaenyra then says Aemond called her sons bastards to Laurel. He's come in. He's fed up as fuck. He wants to go off and sail and have lots of sex with sailors. He doesn't want to be there, but he's fulfilling his duty. And she says, you know, it's a treasonous thing. It's a treasonous accusation. It's actually an assault on the crown itself to call our children, our sons, bastards. And Laurel says, well, they're not wrong, are they? And then Rhaenyra kind of says, remember our promise, remember what we're here to do. If we want it to look legit, you have to stand by me, basically, and you have to stand up for me. He says that he's tried that, it's failed, but he will stand there and he won't give up on his promise. So although they're not married in the true sense of the word, they're married on paper, and he'll do his best to fulfill his promise, which is kind of not what Rhaenyra wants. She wants him to be more than that. She wants him to do his duty as a father, as a future king. and essentially do what she says, but in his name, to make it look like she hasn't told him to do it. We then get a scene where Viserys is in sort of like a holding room or a caravan with Alicent. Looks ill as fuck. He's coughing up. He's spluttering, sweating. He's got the fever sweats. Can't breathe. And he looks really, really dead at this point. He looks done for. I honestly don't think there's going to be much left of him. I think in the next few episodes he's going to be gone, unfortunately. Great character. But it is coming, guys. This is culminating to Viserys' death. And by God, is it going to kick off when he does die. But anyway, the next scene is Rhaenyra and Damon. They're talking about fire and water, i.e. the Valyrian houses, Driftwood, and the Targaryen houses, fire. They're coming up with a bit of a plan. They're saying, you know, Rhaenyra's like, we're the true Targaryens. We don't need to listen to anybody. Why are we fucking about with all this courtesy, with all this nicey-nicey? If you're with me, we get married, we can rule as Targaryens should, with fire and blood. Damon quickly says, we can't do that because you're still married. And Rhaenyra kind of looks at him and says, yeah, I know. And it's like, oh shit. She's willing to kill off Laurel, whatever his name is, to get what she wants. It's at that stage now. We then get a scene where Lord Varys is in the ear of Alicent. He's talking about an outrage and says that he can deliver the eye that she wants. Talks about what happened with the kids and says, are you going to let that happen? Lord Varys, again, is very much a puppet character, a Littlefinger type character. He's pulling the strings and he's dropping in strong seeds of information in people's heads, and he's getting them to do things that he feels is right. He is the master manipulator in this one alongside Otto, and I think together they're going to cause a lot of damage in the future episodes and even seasons. So he's talking to Alicent and says, it's an outrage, can't believe that. If you want me to bring that eye for you that you craved and you asked for, I will go and get it.
I see you.
And she says, it's not necessary. We're going to do what we need to do, but I will not forget your loyalty in the years to come. So Alicent, although she's not playing cruel, nasty Cersei type queen at the minute, she's quite ruthless. She's quite willing to do what she needs to do to get her family on top. And I think she's quite done with doing the right thing now. She's going down that path of, do you know what? Sometimes we have to do things we don't want to do. Sometimes people do have to die for the greater good. And why should I roll over and allow people to treat me like a piece of shit when my bloodline is on the line, my lineage, my character? I'm the fucking queen. She's on that sort of page now where she feels, nah, this is not flying. So we get that sort of interaction with what she says to Lord Varys. She doesn't explicitly say, I'm going to sort of reward you for being my little mercenary, but that's kind of what she says. She says, I won't forget your loyalty. That's not necessary. Don't go and cut another child's eye out. I've calmed down. However, I totally respect your loyalty and I won't forget it. Gives him the little wink wink. So something's coming with that as well. More on that to come. We then get some final scenes where Rhaenyra is, again, going back to Damon and Rhaenyra. She's asking Damon to be at her side. She says, once we are husband, you could be prince consort. When my father dies, you become king. And again, he's reminding her, you know, we can't do that. We need to get rid of Laurel, basically. But he does also say that the Valyrians belong in the sea. You're right. We belong in the sky. We belong on the land. Valyrians belong in the sea at the bottom of the depths. We are the rulers, Targaryens. So Damon then, there's a scene where Damon goes to a sort of trusted soldier, I can't remember his name, and says, I want a quick death, no witnesses. And you think, oh shit, what's going on? The next scene is Driftmark, well and truly under siege. So the Valyrian house is under assault. You get a couple of little mercenaries going in there. And Laenor, essentially, is sort of, her memory's been completely tarnished already. And Damon's moving on. The mercenary finds Laurel in what looks like a hearth room, like a massive guest room of sorts, like a hall, a grand hall. He stood in front of the fire. This mercenary goes in and basically says to Laura, I've wanted to do this for a long time. You disrespected me. So there's a bit of history there. And I do recognize the soldier that does it. But he's Damon's little mouthpiece, basically. Damon says to him, go and do that. And he says, yes, sir. How many times do you want me to wipe your ass? But he's gone in there. He's challenged Laurel and said, "I've not forgotten what you said to me, you piece of shit. I'm going to enjoy this." Laurel draws his sword. They have a little jousting match. I'll have a little clanging of steel. And the next scene is Laurel gets sliced down, and the guardists or the mercenaries sort of giving him the "fuck you" speech, Targaryens rule and all that shit. The next scene is it's gruesome as fuck. Laurel is chucked in to the fire within the Great Hall. So you get the Queen screaming, the Queen of Driftwood. The Lord Corlys runs in with his little dressing gown on. He's like, "What the fuck's going on? How did he get past you?" As into the guards. And then his son's corpse is well and truly burnt brisket on the floor. He's done. He's dead. So Laurel is dead. The lineage essentially of House Driftmark is gone, all in one swift scene, all thanks to Damon and Rhaenyra's plans. So Laurel's now dead. We then get a scene whilst we've got that, and this is a really cool sort of analogy of fire and blood. The fire is Laurel burnt to a crisp, and in the flicking of the scenes, the blood, Damon and Rhaenyra marry in Targaryen fashion with literal blood. So they mark their commitment to each other. They seal it in blood. They get married, so it's official. Damon, uncle, and Rhaenyra, niece, are now an item. Sick as fuck, but that's kind of how the Targaryens roll. They are very much all about the incest. They do claim that it keeps the bloodline pure. It's something that's happened throughout all of history in Game of Thrones. They marry cousins, brothers, mums, wives, nans, all that kind of shit.
Oh, hell no!
Damon and Rhaenyra are now married. So that is where the whole fire and blood contrast comes from. Poor Laurel is burnt to a cinder, and Damon and Rhaenyra are married in blood. We then get a very quick scene where the mercenaries are now heading out to Driftmark on a ship, looking at each other, giving the nod. They've done their deed, they're sailing off, and they look like they're about to cause more trouble. So it could be that Damon and Rhaenyra have ordered another hit, maybe not, or they might have just gone over to cause the assassination and then run away. It's a bit odd that Corlys wasn't in that list, and neither was the Queen of Driftmark, I forget her name, but it might be that they want to avoid that as much as possible. Maybe it looks too suspicious. It's obvious if it comes from a Targaryen, if all of them are wiped out, I don't know. But with the final scene is the two mercenaries sailing off into the sunset, pleased with what they've done, on their way to cause more havoc. So that is episode 7, Driftmark, done. I really enjoyed it, guys. This show is absolutely sailing. Can't say as much for Rings of Power, although episode 6 was really good. I did enjoy that. Hopefully it goes up, not down. But for this show, it's consistently hitting great episodes out of the park. I feel they're on a really good, straight direction with this now. They've got the writing in. They've got the characters in. The dialogue's perfect. The cinematography is great. The way the scenes are put together is beautiful. Very sort of poetic almost, when you've got, like I said, the fire and blood. Laurel's body's burnt, fire. Damon and Rhaenyra, blood. And you've got the Dance of the Dragons. The music's great. The characters, some of them are getting a really good story arc. Alicent in particular is becoming one of my favourites. As she started off, I didn't really give a shit about her. I thought she was a pretty pointless character. Didn't really have a spine, didn't really have a backbone. But she's slowly descending into Cersei mode. She's going down the route of not giving a shit, and ultimately doing absolutely anything and everything to ensure her kids are safe, but more importantly, that the name carries on and they succeed the throne. That is bad news for Rhaenyra, who at this point has become a bit of a bitch, really. She's doing what she wants in a very selfish way. She's upset a lot of people. She's gone against the grain. She's gone against her father, even though her father sort of turns a blind eye to it. And she's essentially doing what she wants in true Targaryen fashion, not giving a shit about who she hurts, who she lets down on the way. And it's all come into a massive head. So as soon as Viserys dies, civil war is going to break out. But now obviously you've got the House Driftmark, who have been absolutely decimated, not only because their daughter Laenor died in the prior episode, Laurel is now died, so their lineage is done. The only thing that is keeping their lineage alive is the children, and I'd like to think that Rhaenyra and Damon aren't capable of going against kids, but these fuckers are ruthless. They'll do absolutely anything and everything. Everything is culminating now. We've got sides, clear houses on each side as well. You've got different interests, and the only real glue that's stopping this from going full crazy mode at the minute is Viserys. But as we've seen, and as we have seen in this episode leading up to this point, and now he's on his way out, he's on his last legs, he is literally ready to drop dead. So the poor fucker is going to drop any minute. But once he's gone, this shit is going to go absolutely nuts. Crazy times. So that's my review done, guys. Let me know in the comments what you think. If I was to give this a solid rating out of 10, it's going to be a perfect 8. Really good. Really enjoyed the episode. Loving the TV show. I don't want it to end. I think it's really caught traction now, but we've got a few more episodes at least before it finishes. And I'm going to be strongly looking forward to next week and the next season as well. So let me know in the comments what you think of the episode. Is there anything that I've missed? Is there anything that you think could have been better, or did you enjoy it as much as I did? Until next week, guys, take care of yourselves. Stay tuned for more content, and I'll see you again very soon. Peace.